we'll get into the panel discussion right away. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly do not leave the hall, please. We are running out of time, so if you go out, kindly come back because we have a tendency, एकजना गएपछि गुर्र जाने चलन छ. So त्यो हिसाबमा. May I request all the panelists to come? We have invited Mr. Sachin Thakuri. He is the co-founder of ThreatNix, and Mr. Bijay Limbu Senihang, co-founder of and CTO Vairav Technology. Bijay ji, are you here? Bijay Limbu, right. And Mr. Bijendra Suwal, DGM of Nepal Investment Bank. And to moderate the session, I'd like to request Neelesh Singh ji. He's the CEO of NCHL, to invite all of them on the stage. So Sachin and Bijay has been selected based on their voices that we've read on the media, and Bijendra ji is a very senior most banker, plus he's got a hands-on on the IT for a long time. And Neelesh ji, as you know, he's done a lot of work through the payment system of NCHL. So the whole goal of this session is to try to understand the local context from the cyber kind of stuff. So without much ado, I think let me right away hand it over floor to Neelesh.
It's always wonderful to be in the session and the program organized by NBA. And today I've been given an assignment to moderate the session on current issues and challenges in cyber fraud, the local perspective. When we talk about the cyber security, or in fact the digitization, the government of Nepal, it has a very straightforward policy-related direction towards digital Nepal. And when we talk about the digital Nepal, whether it's the process automation or the automation in the payments industry, there could be a major setback or the hindrances if there are any kind of cybersecurity breaches or the cyber frauds. And having said that, the banking industry, or in that sense, many of the industries moving ahead with the digitization, there are lots of investments on the infrastructures, IT infrastructure, IT security as well. And while we move on from digitization, there is also a requirement that there has to be a concrete investment on infrastructure, processes, and even on the people when we talk about the cybersecurity and the cyber fraud. And here we have the prominent experts from the industry of cybersecurity, plus the banking expert here with us as a panelist. We have Sachin Thakuri, co-founder of ThreatNix, who has been involved in organizing annual conference called as ThreatCon in Nepal, and has more than 6 years of experience as the cybersecurity expert. And he has been involved in finding vulnerabilities on international web portals like Facebook, Twitter, and Yahoo as well. That's very promising. And we have Mr. Bijendra Suwal, well-known face in banking industry, has over almost 3 decades of experience in banking and financial technology at Nobel Investment Bank and Nepal Investment Bank right now as a DGM, and has been or seen the entire IT industry grow within the banking industry, right from core banking systems to switch to mobile banking, branchless banking, and you name it. And we have the third resource as a panelist, Mr. Bijay Limbu, who is the co-founder and chief technology officer of Vairav Technology. The company has been providing the IS and IT audit-related services, forensics, and IT security consulting. And he has over 8 years of experience in the IS audit and security. And he has been involved in providing cybersecurity-related training even to Nepal Army and Nepal Police. I would like to move on with few of the questions to our panelists. I would like to start with Mr. Sachin. Since you have the first-hand experience in finding vulnerabilities in so many international web portals as well, like Facebook, Microsoft, Twitter, Yahoo as well, in the current context of the recent few incidents in Nepal related to cyber frauds, how do you see the state of cybersecurity in Nepal, particularly the banking industry?
Thank you, sir, for the question. So in regard with the vulnerabilities, we tend to find a lot of similar and even some existed vulnerabilities that are no longer available in the applications that we see abroad. So in terms of vulnerabilities, in most of the applications and services that we use on day-to-day on our day-to-day process. There are a lot of vulnerabilities that we see, and then one, I think what we lack over here is the lack of communication whenever that vulnerabilities is found. For example, last year we found a vulnerability called remote code execution on online banking, which is used by more than 8 banks in Nepal, and then once we discovered that issue, that particular issue got fixed in one particular bank where we found it, but then in order to get it fixed throughout all other banks that were currently using it, it was much more complicated than it seemed, and it took us more than 4 months to get it patched in all other in all other banking, in other banks' internet banking as well. So in regards with vulnerabilities, I would say it's pretty weak in compared to international standards. But then if we compare it to few years back, if we compare it to even 2 or 3 years back, then I would say it's got much better than it was in the past.
Thank you, Sachin. I would like to move on within the banking industry per se. Mr. Bijendra ji has actually seen the industry evolve from data-based banking to the international standard mobile bankings, core bankings as well. And even he was actually one of the pioneering team member of introducing the Visa debit card and the ATMs as well in Nepal, I believe. In this regards, during this journey of digitization in the banking industry, what are the initiatives that you think the banking industry has taken forward with respect to cybersecurity? Has it gone in tandem with the digitization of the actual business processes per se?
Thanks. Thanks, NBI, for giving me this opportunity. Thanks, Nana. No, I've been advocating 3 main parts. One is mindset. Okay, we are very quick to bring excuse and pass our bugs from one place to another. Whenever we do anything, we should have a mindset on a security aspects, whether we build a house or we get a car or digital systems. Right from the day first, we always look at from the negative sides. We as an ethical hacker, I call it, what is the possibilities if I become a hacker with my technical knowledge or know-how of the whole systems, how I can hack my system. Let's say tomorrow if I leave and I'm very angry with my company, how I can destroy. Those are the checklists we make. And immediately after that, against the checklist, then we start preparing all the requirements. And when you start preparing requirements, it doesn't come that easily. And first thing, of course, as a Nepal, we do not have easy access to these solutions or hardware devices, whatever you call it. We don't have easy access to vendors. Those days we have to depend on magazines called PC magazines, some other magazines now, I forgot, it's almost 30 years back. That is the only source, unlike today's. Secondly, once you have access to information of these solutions, the affordability comes. The price is so high. I remember even in Nabil, when we thought to have a firewall during 1995, 97, the cost is about $40,000, $50,000 per piece. But the mindset we have done is we are not going to have a single piece because as a bank, we are running a mission-critical systems, and we are aware that we need to have, or we need to avoid one-point failure system. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. So to avoid one-point failure system and to have a system fault tolerance, each of device you need maybe 3, 4 units. One for testings, one for productions, second is on production, third in DR. So cost goes high. The question comes of whether you can afford or not. And third is how easily you can access it. In those days, when you want to buy these firewalls, you have to take permissions or approval from US federal agents. It's not easily available. So once you get a clearance from US federal agent, then only you will get it. Then equally important and tough time is to get manpowers. We do not have a certified security experts then. Despite that, we have made sure these are minimum requirement we set up in the systems. That the point is you have to be proactive. You don't wait for instructions from any regulatory authority or from your top boss or from nations, any unit. Such proactive measures should be taken by you so that at least you can sleep well. Otherwise, we'll be a talking lot and we'll having these kind of seminars a lot for each and every incident. Now that is taking place more frequently. So other things about the solution that provided by vendors, I take it as a more like a materialistic. So you have to be a mindset and you have to take the proactive measures. And you have to stay alert every time. It's not that whether you go with OTP or a robotic monitor, you're not safeguarding anything because these are all man-made. Once it's a man-made, and that can be cracked easily, even with EMV. That's what I was telling yesterday in my small group, whether we are using EMV or whether you are using PCI DSS, any security matters, those will be cracked immediately. So it's a constant process, and we have to adapt proactively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bijendra ji has rightly touched based on the cybersecurity related resources, lack of cybersecurity resources then, and I believe that it's the same case as of today as well. And moving on to the next panelist, I would like to put on a small question on to Mr. Bijay. Since you have been engaged in so many of the security related assignments, is it the appliances or the solutions or the lack of manpower only that the banking industry is facing right now with respect to the cybersecurity? Or are there any other way, better way basically to protect ourselves from cyber frauds or the lack of the cybersecurity per se? Based on your some of the assignments that you may have done with some of the other industries or in the banking industry as well. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, sir. Okay, so the first thing, it's been more than 8 years that I've been doing these IS audit and cybersecurity assessment. So based on my experience here in Nepal, what I see, especially from the banking industry perspective, the main thing is, as Bijendra sir has already said, that we need to have a mindset. The first thing, mindset, okay, so what is the mindset? Cybersecurity has now become a management portion. It's kind of like, cybersecurity is not just for the operations or small operations of the IT, but it has become one of the management part of the bank. So if we don't think like in management, then it's hard to implement cybersecurity framework. Because there are lots of framework that has been defined. We have NIST cybersecurity framework, GRACE cybersecurity framework. There are lots of cybersecurity framework that we can find. But if we don't have mindset of management, then it's hard to implement. So during the audit, the most important thing that I found is that in any industry, not only in banking industry, in any industry, we need to identify our core business. Let's say for banking industry. So the core business is to do the banking business. So that means what? We need to onboard customers. So then after onboarding customers, then we have to provide them loans or any kinds of banking services. So during that onboarding process, we have different levels of technology implemented on our side. So now what we need to understand is that what kind of critical data, critical system has been placed or or we are using at our site. So if we can identify that particular critical systems, critical data, if we can classify them properly, then only we can properly implement the cybersecurity framework. Otherwise, there will be one issues which we all face in daily basis, that is the budget. We can't implement every cybersecurity budget for every technology in our organizations. It's impossible to implement because there's certain limitations in budget. So in that limitations, how can we implement the cybersecurity framework? So that is the most important thing that we need to understand. So during the audit, what I found is that there are lots of loopholes, lapses, not only in the technology, not only in the process, but also lapses in our industry also. For an example, the recent things, the incident that took in August 31, everyone was blaming either banking industry or the particular victim organizations, but nobody has thought that how can we protect now onwards? Because in my experience, there are 5 particular areas where the cyber fraud or cyber crime can occur again. If it occurs again, then it will be more devastating. So 5 areas are, especially for the banking industry, is the CVS environment. Second is the ATM environment. Third is the SWIFT environment. Fourth is the payment processing environment. And last one is the utility payments, all the mobile bankings and internet banking. So what we need to understand is that, so which are the core area that we need to focus to protect our customers' data, our business. So we need to implement on perspective of that. Otherwise, antivirus, firewalls, different kind of appliance, that won't be properly implemented without knowing what needs to be protected from our side. Because I can give you one case scenario. The antivirus that we use in our workstations does not fit in the ATM environment, because ATM environment operating system is the built-in, which is a binary operating system. So that particularly, so if you don't understand the business perspective of any technology, then it's hard to implement the cybersecurity. So the main thing is the mindset. We need to have at least the management mindset in terms of cybersecurity. Otherwise, cybersecurity will always become an IT problem, but not a business risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Bijay. Since he has actually touched based on the recent incident of ATM, I believe that it would be of much of interest for many of the audience as well. When you talk about that ATM-related recent incident, one of the switch provider, which was PCI DSS certified, must have gone all the due diligence that is actually prescribed by Visa, or I believe that it's also the member of the access to MasterCard or the UnionPay or other network providers as well. What exactly went wrong despite of it following the international benchmark standards as well? So my question to Mr. Sachin, based on the international exposures on what's happening on the cyberspace internationally as well, the type of the attacks, different forms of attacks coming in, what do you think that went wrong with respect to the recent ATM attack or the fraud that has recently happened in Nepal?
Thank you for the question. So the first thing that I want to clear out is if your organization has certain kind of certification is or certified for different certain things, then it doesn't make sure that your organization is never going to be attacked. So what a certification is, that it has certain policies, certain standards that an organization needs to meet in order to improve their security posture. But then a certification can never assure that your organization will not get hacked in the future. So in order to secure an organization or certification, just getting a certification is not just enough. So as Bijendra sir earlier said, there are certain things that needs to be taken care of. For example, the mindset, and then to take security as a main primary focus in an organization rather than something that needs to be done in order to get certified or in order to follow some policies as well. And then in regards to what can be done in the future that I see are currently lacking in Nepal's scenarios, I've just written it down. So I thought this question would certainly come up, so I had come prepared for this. So there are certain so there are certain lists that I have prepared that in my thinking are one of the main cases that the reasons for the attacks that happened. The exact technical details or the exact way that the attacks were carried out it's something that we'll know in the future, because we still don't have the digital forensics report yet. So I would rather skip talking about how the attackers did those things, but then would like to focus on the things that we lacked, and then the things that the financial organizations needs to focus on in near future. So the first thing would be to formulate policies that addresses cybersecurity. For example, policies like, I'm pretty sure there are already some of the policies that I'm going to mention. For example, the backup and then the audit policy that needs to be in an organization, and then the other policies such as password policy, password change policy, and then the other one I see that many of the organizations have there in the policy, but then is not implemented or regulated properly, is the use of cracked software. So I see I still work with different banks and other different organizations as well. And then in their policy, they have that the particular organization cannot use cracked software. But then I see most of those organizations still using those cracked softwares. And then the other step would be to educate employees of an organization. So in security, there's this quote sort of thing where we say that human link is the weakest link in an organization from a security perspective. So, and even if you research about or read about the different cyber attacks that happens in Nepal or in abroad as well, then you'll notice that most of them, the root cause or the starting cause for most of those attacks are either social engineering or phishing emails or malicious downloads of some certain applications. So I think it's really important to educate all the employees with all the risks that can happen in the day-to-day process that they work through. And then the other would be to harden a network and machines. So one thing that I would like to mention here is that I don't see much of the updates or the patches that comes on a particular server on an application being implemented as soon as it comes out. For example, there's this vulnerability called Bluekeep. So it's a vulnerability in RDP protocol of Windows. So and then it was released few months back, but then the public exploit just got released few weeks back, and then once it came out, so we started to analyze all the Nepali IP ranges to see if those machines connected to that Nepali IP ranges are still vulnerable to Bluekeep or not. And then we found out that more than 100 different machines are still vulnerable to Bluekeep vulnerability in Nepal only. And then the other thing that we most commonly see is the use of end-of-life softwares or systems or servers. So we are, due to different financial and budgeting reasons and we see that a lot of organizations, a lot of systems still use different operating systems or applications that has already ended its services and then is no longer updated or maintained and of which no longer the patches or updates are available. And then the other thing is we need to make sure that we have a plan to figure out what kind of attacks our organizations, our financial sectors are getting. And then in order to do that, I think we need to have some sort of decoy software or something we call honeypot that we need to implement in our organization so that we can monitor and then we can figure out the kinds of attacks that we are currently facing or that we are currently being attacked through. And then the other one that I do not much see in Nepal is the adaptation of advanced authentication technique or 2FA. For example, 2FA needs to be enabled on most of the critical infrastructures or assets or networks or servers, but then it's something that we have been lacking on. And then the other important thing that I have wrote is the increase in customer awareness. So what we do is we are service providers. We provide our customers with different services such as mobile banking, internet banking, ATMs. There's Vairav banking now as well. But then what we do not do is we do not focus on awareing our customers about the consequences or the risk that can arise from using those services. So I think it's important that we need to increase those kind of customer awareness in order to prevent our customers as well. And then as policy-wise, I think there needs to be a really strong cybersecurity framework for banks that needs to be formulated by Nepal Rashtra Bank. And then the other important thing is, as we all know that there's a team called SORT, so Computer Emergency Response Team, that handles all the incidents that happen. So there's also the lack of SORT team in Nepal. So we need to either collaborate with banks, or either NRB needs to formulate a SORT team that can handle incidents whenever it happens in future. And then, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin. That's very elaborative description of what's happening in the industry, including related with the ATM fraud as well. He has very well touched based on the social engineering thing per se. I would like to share one of the data from the Global Data Risk Report of 2018. 21% of the files are unprotected, more than 30% of the phishing emails are open, and 60% of the frauds it happen or initiates from the mobile devices. So these are normally the tools that are basically used by the attackers for social engineering, and is the easiest way out to enter into any of the networks or the infrastructure per se. When it comes to the social engineering, only one of the defense factor that actually works is how much of the investment that an institution has done in terms of the awareness per se. In the banking industry, Mr. Bijendra ji, what do you think that the level of awareness or the investment per se on the awareness for its internal staff, employees, whether that's its own or outsourced, and the awareness, level of awareness that is being carried out for its customers? What's your thought on this? Yeah.
No, the first and foremost important is the root of the whole system. That is we call it IT or IT department. The people in the IT department should realize first that this is the critical systems we are placing in an organizations on which customers are depending on it. So when we say mission critical, then we should define what do you mean by mission critical, and what are the characteristics of this mission critical. Once you realize that, then you have to be self-aware of all the possibilities within the system, what could happen, what could be the worst case scenario. In most of the cases, what we find is we take it for granted, and we'll have all the, what you call factory setup systems, because we are so hurried to launch that with the pressure from external sides. And we simply launch the system in the factory settings, and we hardly realize what needs to be done. We not keep kind of checklist that really demands by mission critical systems. So first and foremost is awareness within IT people, IT person in that system who have initiated, who will be taking care. That's the first important. And this IT person should have in-depth knowledge of the overall cycle. You should not be passing, okay, I'll be taking care of hardware, another will taking care of a database, another will taking care of applications. If you do that, then there's another problem it will arise. So I always have pushed, it's more like a jack of all, or if possible, master of all in the IT system, so that you can visualize all possibilities. And secondly, obviously it's important for your staff to be aware of all the possibilities. But before making them possibilities, you should protect your systems on all negligence that can take place within the staff. For instance, when we blocked our USB, there was a UN cry. And it was a very proactive measures when we blocked USB. Even we are working to block hard disk access system. We do not want our users to access the hard disk, because the hard disk is merely for storing some of your operating system and applications. We rather give a partitions where you can store your data, and that is confined. So this kind of proactive measures you have to take, and after that you have to create an awareness to your staff. Like you were saying, phishings or getting some malwares, what are the possible way you get it. If you think it's an email system, and as an IT person, you should protect your system from all the aspects so that it doesn't go to your end users. And secondary issue is how you create awareness with the end users. If you look at the history or the past cases, most of this malware or phishing, it's not from the end users. These are most of from the IT users who are confident of using system, who are overconfident of using system. And thirdly, answering two questions, I don't think we have done that much of awareness campaign to our customers of the bank. I think newspapers are taking care that part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to move on with a little bit on the technical part as well. When we talk about the cybersecurity, most of the leaders of almost all the industry per se, when we talk about the cybersecurity or the cyber fraud, they normally relate that with the IS audit or the process audit per se. What is lacking in most of the cases, including the banking industry as well, is the technical or the IS assessment per se, which normally they call it as a VAPTs or what they call as the detailed security assessments per se. I would like to put a question to Mr. Bijay in this regards, since he has been engaged in some of the IS audits or security audits as well. What do you think that the kind of interest that the industry is giving on VAPTs or irregular security reviews of all the critical or the mission critical equipments or the systems that they are running?
Thank you for the question. So, okay. So, if I have to say regarding the VAPT, the industry, especially if we look at the foreign industry, say India, IS audit has never adopted VAPT. They run VAPT separately and IS audit separately. So 6 years back, we found that gap here in Nepal while doing the initial assessment. IS audit was not enough to identify the other technology loopholes, especially, let's say, sorry for, the main thing that I found during the audit assessment is that the process audit does not cover the detailed technology risks associated with the process. So we then started to do the IS audit along with the VAPT. Not only the VAPT of the network, but the applications, mobile applications, web applications, websites. Then after doing the IS audit and VAPT side by side, then after 6 years, then we found again another gap. The IS audit and the VAPT, especially the process audit and the technology audit, especially the, you can say black box penetration testing, a white box, a gray box. That also was not much quite fruitful for finding out the lapses in our IT systems and the process. So then we started to do the configurations audit, which was part of the IS audit. So configuration audit of not only the network switches, routers, or firewalls. We started to do the configurations audit of the servers, all the applications, databases, and even we started to do the audit of the access control. So then after, then we finally realized that, okay, so one-time audit is not enough. Doing IS audit annually for the one time, that does not protect from the regular going cyber attacks. So now it has become very crucial that at least now we have to do twice a year IS audit, or IS audit must be in a continuous way. Because if you see in the financial audit, on a quarterly basis, we do the financial audit, and at the end of the closing year, we all summarize the audit and then prepare a report. So maybe we need to learn from the financial audit process, doing the same process. Maybe we can start to implement that. And if that is possible, then most probably, I guess, it will be more proactive, and in some cases, it could be reactive. And the important thing during the audit, we also found that the audit has to be incorporated with the continuous monitoring. So the IT system is at least mature in our Nepal. In Nepal, it has matured somehow. It has become from the baseline to the intermediate. So the network persons, the routers, the switches, firewall has been monitored, but from the security perspective, the security monitoring has not been implemented. Some banks have started, 2 or 3 banks have started to do the continuous security monitoring, but the ongoing cyber attacks, just like Sachin has said, that we need to implement honeypot in the perimeter. So we need to analyze in daily basis what kind of the cyber adversary has been using the attacks. Maybe it could be on the technical perspective, TTP, we say TTP, techniques, tactics, and the procedure. So what kind of TTP has been used by the cyber adversary? We have to continuously understand their movement. So, and on the basis of that, then only we can prepare what kind of cyber security policy that we need, what kind of IT policy that we need, what kind of procedures need to be formulated, what kind of guidelines need to be formulated. So what I say is that the IS audit should be supported by VAPT. VAPT should support by configurations audit, and the configurations audit should, these all audits should be supported by continuously evolve monitoring process, and then only we can find out the actual pain cause or the root cause in our organizations. Then only we can, I guess, we get the idea of securing our organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. We have such a wonderful panelist over here. Would like to engage with some of the audience per se. If there are any questions, you may put on to, you can name the panelist if there is any specific question, or if there is a generic question, you can put forth on panelist and anyone can actually take it up. So please, questions for the panelist. Okay. If there are no questions, I would like to ask a question. Maybe this is of interest for the audience as well. I would like to go on with Mr. Bijendra ji again. When we are talking about, whenever there is an incident, it happens, normally the banking industry, basically we have been actually questioned on the lack of investment per se on the IT infrastructures and the IT security. So is it actually the lack of investment on the IT security or the IT investment per se, or the lack of, or the non-compliance on the processes that is actually opening up some of the vulnerabilities in the banking industry, some of the critical infrastructures?
On top of your questions, I also read or get comments stating Nepal's banking system is highly vulnerable, our ATM system is very bad, our card system is very bad, all this kind of news. No, it's not true. When we set up a card systems, every device's equipment process is certified by the card payment system, whether it's a Visa, Masters, CUP, you name it. If you want to launch a Visa card, you can't have your own things. Even a card we buy is from Visa certified company. The software that we buy is Visa certified. The ATM we buy is Visa certified. Or the point of sale terminal is Visa certified. And all these products are not produced specially for Nepal. These are the international product at par with the one you get in abroad. There might be a bit difference in models, otherwise same. So this need to be eradicated. Second I want to join here is we have a misconception. Like one of my colleagues was talking about the PCI DSS certified. PCI DSS certified is misunderstood. It has been taken as a, I call it Chinese whisper. PCI DSS or any kind of certifications. Tomorrow you might be talking about the EMV certifications, or maybe more. The security guys might be knowing much better. Now these are not the certificate to immune you from attack. It could be any attack. None of these things safeguard the systems. Coming back to your points on investment, normally my chief or board never wants to see me. And thanks God, I've counted around 125 having patience to see me here. Whenever I go to my chief room or my board room, the first thing they will say is, Bijendra, you stay outside, we will call you when required. Because I always go with the hefty figure memos. As I told you earlier, things doesn't come that easily. I remember once when I was in Industries, and I just shifted from Nobel Bank to Industries, and there too I need to protect my system. I was alone, I have to do everything on my own. And I've been told to have a firewall. And under the French standards, we're supposed to have a Night Star, that's the name of the product at that time, by CyberGuard. CyberGuard is the company. It's costing around 45,000 US dollar then, with around 29% annual maintenance contract. Having 3 branches, about 60, 70 staff, how you justify having one firewall costing $45,000 with 29% AMC? And I can't have one, I need to have at least 3 or 4. As I said earlier, one is for production, second is redundancy because you have to go for one-point failure systems, and third is for DR centers. So this is the investment we have done it. But it's a very easy for a public or a journalist, whenever something goes wrong, they degrade, I don't know what's the word, they treat you in such a worst way, like now when we talk about the dengue. Even our Minister of Health is suffered from dengue. Or Dr. Reed, who is a Maxis Award winner, Padma Shri Award winner, he's also been suffered from dengue. But does that mean Dr. Reed is not health conscious, or does that mean he doesn't take care of cleanliness? I don't think so. So let's not point figures. In terms of investment bank, as a me, when I work in Nobel Bank, even now in the Nepal Investment Bank, there's no single memo that has been rejected or been pending in terms of security. Yeah, of course it's a very tough. As I said earlier, as IT persons, you should know it's a mission critical system. You should know a few points like a one-point failure systems, redundancy, safety tolerance, and the security should be at a top priority. You should not be excited just because you got one system implemented overnight. So we have done all kind of investment. If you look at the investment, it's a very huge, but I can't comment from other 27 banks. Obviously, I was told one time by my senior, like, why you need 35 lakhs worth precision AC, where another bank is using 2 fans to cool down their servers. So that's the level of contradictions we have it. So some banks is using servers, it's cooled by 2 fans, and where I'm asking for 35 lakhs worth each precision AC just to cool my system. Let's not talk about other security aspects, there's much more. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bijendra ji. There are 2 questions on the board. I would like to read out. The second one seems to be very interesting since we have touched based on the banking industry. There is a new entrance on the ground basically, which is a fintech, so-called as a PSP and PSO licensed institutions by the central bank. The question is, we are talking about the securing banks. Are our local wallets secure and security audited? So I would like to, maybe Sachin can answer on this question maybe, yeah?
Yeah, sure. Regarding the local wallets and different banking services that we use on our day-to-day life, they are security audited, but then not in a regular interval. For example, there are different financial service provider, different applications that are once audited before it gets launched, but then since security is a continuous process rather than a one-time thing, then once that particular, that one-time security testing is done, it's not done on a regular interval. And then the other thing that I really find disturbing is that most of these wallets that we security audit, or at least that my company audits, are done through while conducting a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing of a bank. So rather than the third-party vendor that develops or that provides those services with collaboration with the banks approaching us or any other companies for their security audit or testing, it's the banks that are serious, and then all those security audits or penetration testings that are happening, even though it's less, are done through banks' own fund and through banks' initiation only. So if you're asking if those local wallets provider are independently doing security audits, then I think there are few, but then the numbers are really less and very infrequent.
त्यसमै म अलिकति जोडो है निलेश जी, यो सेक्युरिटी यो जुन वालेटको कुरा गर्नुभयो भने आई थिङ्क दिस भेरी क्रिटिकल. अहिले वालेट कम्पनीहरू बढिराखेको छ. सो मैले बुझ्न खोजेको के भने अहिले ब्याङ्कहरूले पनि धमाधम एमओयू साइन गरेको आइराखेको छ. सो यो वालेटले चाहिँ के ब्याङ्कको सिबिएसबाटै एपिआईबाट कनेक्ट भएर आइराखेको छ कि?
त्यो चाहिँ एप्लिकेसनमा डिपेन्ड गर्छ. अब कोही चाहिँ डिरेक्टली
भनेपछि कुनै पनि थ्रेड त हामीलाई वालेटको साइडबाट पनि त आयो नि त. फेरि अहिले त यसो हेर्दाखेरि त ब्याङ्कको सिस्टमभित्र वालेटको थ्रुबाट पनि त ब्याङ्कको सिस्टममा पेनिट्रेसन गर्न सक्यो नि. अनि 1 करोडको कम्पनी होइन, त्यो क्यापिटल पुँजी भएको, सो पैसा चाहिँ अरबौँ परिचालन गरेको छ, त्यसमा हजारौँ लाखौँ चाहिने मान्छेले त्यसबाट कारोबार गरिराखेको छ भने मतलब. सो एज अ युजर मैले कुनै पनि त्यो वालेटको युजरबाट सो ह्याकरले चाहिँ त्यहाँबाट पनि छिर्न सक्ने भयो.
डेफिनेटली. सो
भनेपछि यो जुन क्वेसन सोध्नु भएको छ यो त एकदम क्रिटिकल क्वेसन आयो होइन. यसले चाहिँ नि तपाईँको सेक्युरिटी चाहिँ नि अडिटको कुन स्ट्यान्डर्डको गराउने त उनीहरूलाई पनि, सो इक्वल्ली भन्ने कुरा पनि त आउँछ कि आउँदैन?
डेफिनेटली. सो त्यही हामीले लगभग 1 वर्ष अगाडि त्यो जुन अनलाइन ब्याङ्किङको केसमा चाहिँ एउटा रिमोट कोड एक्जिक्युसन भन्ने भल्नरेबिलिटी हुन्छ. सो त्यसले चाहिँ त्यो पर्टिकुलर एप्लिकेसन र सर्भरमा चाहिँ हामीलाई फुल एक्सेस दिन्छ. अनि त्यो चाहिँ अब त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ त्यो ब्याङ्कलाई त्यो इन्टरनेट.
ठिकै छ, हुन्छ. म अर्को क्विकली निलेश, आई थिङ्क नेक्स्ट प्यानल इज अलरेडी हियर. मैले अर्को तपाईँहरूलाई नै सेक्युरिटी एक्सपर्टहरूलाई सोध्न खोजेको 2टा अर्को कुरा. सो बिकज यु हेभ रेज्ड इन द पास्ट कि यो के भन्छ, यो ब्याङ्कहरूले डाटा जस्तो मोबाइल एप मैले 4-5वटा ब्याङ्कको ल्याएको छु, मेरो जहाँ अकाउन्ट छ त्यो डाटा चाहिँ नि ब्याङ्कले आफूले होस्ट नगरेर त्यो डेभलपरलाई होस्ट गर्न दिएको छ भन्ने कुराहरू आइराखेको छ. यो सेक्युरिटीको लागि चाहिँ नि कतिको सेन्सिटिभ छ? विजयजी, यु वान्ट टु टेक दिस?
Okay. So definitely during the development process, developers definitely need the data. But especially in our industry, we don't have that practice of providing the dummy data. Because of sometimes due to the...
होइन मैले त्यो भन्दा पनि मेरो एज अ कस्टमर म ब्याङ्कको ग्राहक भएको हुनाले मेरो डाटा मेरो ब्याङ्कसँग सुरक्षित छ कि मेरो ब्याङ्कले चाहिँ नि त्यो थर्ड पार्टीलाई होस्ट गर्न दिएको छ भन्ने कुरामा मात्र मेरो प्रश्न थियो.
Okay, so regarding the third party wallets, local wallets, राष्ट्र ब्याङ्ककै कुरा गर्नुहुन्छ भने the first thing that we need to find out is that राष्ट्र ब्याङ्कले कतिको प्रेसराइज गरेको छ त लोकल वालेट्सहरूलाई. Because the data does not mean that the security bankle मात्रै हैन, security जति पनि इन्भल्भ भएको जुन जति पनि associated parties are involved हुन्छ त्यो सर्भिस प्रोभाइड गर्नको लागि सबैजनालाई security is must. But at the end what we do is that we look at the Nepal Rashtra Bank guidelines. Nepal Rashtra Bank le bhaneko छैन भने why should I do? That's the mentally that I found.
Can we take these two questions because अर्को प्यानलिस्टहरु आइसक्नु भएको छ.
So would like to wrap it up with the questions on itself. I guess some of these have been already been answered as well, related to the engagement of CEOs and CFOs as well. Rightly identified by some of the panelists that it's a mindset not only the IT people, but it's more of the mindset of the entire people that are actually engaged in the company, including the CEO to the lowest level of the people on itself. However, one of the questions related to the local vendors, enough to minimize the threats, maybe Bijendra ji can put few words on this. It says that are the procedures followed by local vendors enough to minimize threat? If not, how can we improve?
Now, technically speaking, yeah, you can minimize the threat, but at what level? Whether it's enough or not? The answer is it's not enough. There are much more things to be done. I still see lack of awareness within technical local vendor as well, especially the people who are involved in a vendor, not as a whole vendor name, but the individual involved in that vendor. They are not still aware enough to tackle these kind of issues.
Thank you very much. With this, today's session of issues and challenges on cyber fraud, the local perspective, I guess the message is very clear that we need to invest on the IT infrastructure, IT security. The mindset, the people is important, right from the topmost management to the lowest level. And we also need to make the people or the customers aware. And at the same time, we need to set our processes in place, including the technical assessments. I guess that it has been a wonderful session. Thank you very much, all the panelists, and it's a pleasure to moderate.
So thank you. So त्यसमा मतलब जस्तो यसलाई अलिकति मैले जुन हिसाबले बुझेँ तपाईहरुको डिस्कसनबाट आएको चीज र कि ग्राहकको बैंकको यो डाटा चाहिँ नि मतलब सेक्युरिटी ब्रीच कुनै पनि ठाउँबाट हुन सक्छ हैन कतैबाट पनि आउन सक्छ तर हाम्रो सिस्टम चाहिँ नि रोबस्ट छ इन प्लेस बट दिस इज इभल्भिङ प्रोसेस नै हो हैन त्यो हिसाबमा भन्ने कुरा पनि एउटा चाहिँ आएको छ सो देन द पोलिसीज प्रोसेसमा देयर इज अलवेज अ रुम फर इम्प्रुभमेन्ट र जेमा नि त्यो रुम फर इम्प्रुभमेन्ट छ सो विथ द्याट नोट थ्याङ्क यू सो मच म बमबहादुर सर आइसक्नु भएको छ एकचोटि टोकन अफ एप्रिसिएसन ह्यान्डओभर गर्नको लागि हाम्रो नेपाल राष्ट्र ब्याङ्कको एक्जिक्युटिभ डाइरेक्टर पेमेन्ट उसबाट बमबहादुर मिश्र सर आउनु भएको छ सो मलाई उहाँलाई चाहिँ नि टोकन अफ एप्रिसिएसन ह्यान्डओभर गरिदिनको लागि हाम्रो प्यानलिस्टहरूलाई सो क्यान यू अल स्ट्यान्ड अप सो So thank you to Neelesh and all the panelists. I'd like to also request our experts who've come from India to engage with these two gentlemen. You know, like they are both the Bijay and Sachin because you are from the same fraternity. So maybe you can create a partnership or whatever to start with. Bijay, so kindly meet with the. So let's take a quick break, but kindly come back because as you know, the very senior people are already here. So can you please respect their time as well and quickly come back in 5 to 7 minutes. So Uttam sir is also very, very busy and Bambadur sir is very busy. So just respecting, sir, हामी अलिकति time भन्दा पछि अलिकति गइराखेको छु sir. So त्यसले गर्दाखेरि